I'm here, everyone. I'm here. So sorry about that. Yes, the news episodes always take longer than I intend them to. Oh, my goodness. I'm here. Hopefully, I've got the sound levels correct. Let's hope for that being correct. Yes, good. Oh, my goodness me. Hello, can you hear me? I am live, I believe. Hopefully the technology is going to enable me to be live. I'll briefly go big face. Hello, everyone. Hello. Oh, I've got an empty mug of tea here. There. We definitely, absolutely must have bought the Treasury. Merch, always available. How are we doing? Oh, I've swizzled my slider, my mixer, so hopefully the sound balance when the audio comes through will be okay. We'll soon find out. Anyway, yeah, sorry I'm a little late. Let's get cracking. Yes, it's episode 175. Dave Grohl Takes The Train, another news story. Yeah, it's a news episode, everyone. Shout out to the Class 175. Here it is in its original livery. First Northwestern weird service that kind of got absorbed. It replaced a bunch of Class 37 Hold Mark II coaches, which is also a bit weird to think of. How bizarre. What a time to be alive. Anyway, hopefully you all enjoyed what was on the telly. It only remains for me to say, well, actually, I'm not going to say anything.
Welcome to tonight's Rail Natter.
I really need to get the sound balance right on that that news bit. Anyway, yes, as the Intercity 225 fades away, it's news time, everyone. Let's get my small face up in the corner so you can see what the hell's going on. Yes, it's I was briefly on with Portillo. It was an interesting chat to him. He clearly had someone do some research for him because he did make several Walmart-oriented jokes to compliment me and at Walmart's expense. And a couple of things that potentially referenced RailNet. I'm not sure. He is a politician, which means he's kind of got his researchers to do some work. But anyway, so that was fine. There's not going to be a frenemies thing. I do not align with Portillo's politics. But he was doing the premise of this series of Great British Railway Journeys was fundamentally Keynesian. So I have no regrets in the appearance. I will always appear to make the case for HS2. It's a shame it didn't make the cut. That's the only problem. Anyway, so right. Let's do the news. The ORR has engaged. So on the back of last week's episode, which was about, was it last week? No, it wasn't. The week before's episode about ticket office closures. The Office of Rail and Road is very much engaged passive-aggressive mode, and it started tweeting out quite a few things in reference to passenger assists, almost kind of trying to make the point. And I know a few people in the ORR, in the Office of Rail and Road, and shout out to those of you who are sort of pushing against some of the otherwise pretty substantial regulatory capture happening in the UK at the moment. Portillo is a Natter Patreon supporter now, so he's definitely heard of it. Yeah, good point, Lim Manfu. Yeah, very, very good point. Anyway, so here are some statistics on screen showing that the passenger assists are up substantially. Okay, so they're up substantially on the previous year, obviously, but they are sort of at record-breaking levels. They're higher than they've ever been before. Likewise, bookings by kind of passenger assist bookings. These are all things that require presence of staff. Yes. That's not the only thing. That's not the only PASAC thing that's been getting posted. There's the ORR writing to the rail industry to praise train operators and Network Rail for their progress in training staff to support disabled passengers. What's interesting is a friend of the show, Lucio Buffone, at the bottom here. This is Lucio. On Twitter, we literally have an operating instruction to leave disabled people behind if they haven't rebooked assistance at unstaffed station on DO services. So, just reinforcing the point that, things aren't rosy in the rail industry at the moment. Things are going in all directions. Gareth is asking if the OR have updated their logo to include the Tudor crown now that, the different crown pairs. I bet they haven't, no. Don't worry, campaign for North East Rail. I was also fashionably late for my own podcast. Anyway, what else? Well, there's a quote in this report that they released, which I think is interesting, from Stephanie Tillman, who's the Director of Strategy, Policy and Reform. She said, well-trained staff are essential for an accessible railway. The industry needs people with the appropriate skills, knowledge and attitude necessary to effectively assist disabled passengers to travel with confidence. We have reviewed how operators are providing disability and equality refresher training for all passenger-facing staff, and we are pleased to find that the rail industry is making good progress. Context is key. Anyway, and in amongst all this chaos, His Majesty's Chief Inspector of Railways, HM Chief Inspector of Railways, is resigning. Ian Prosser is resigning. We have to get Ian on once he's retired and get him to dish the juicy goss. Get Ian on. It's in advance of next June when it's Ian's 65th birthday. Happy birthday for next year, Ian. He is retiring. Not a moment too soon. Yes. He is escaping. Sorry, that sounded like I was saying goodbye to Ian. Well, I like Ian Prosser a lot, and he's done a lot for certain types of safety. I think he could have had sharper teeth. There's always a balance to be struck. I think he could have had sharper teeth on accessibility, frankly. I think it's his, not necessarily a blind spot, but it's something that he's clearly not been able to act on where I think he should have. In any case, on the subject of accessibility, Lord Orc, Jellyhead, Lord Orc on Twitter, friend of the show, New Elizabeth Line station for HS2 won't be full accessible as design forces TfL to intervene. Andy Lord is intervening to offer level boarding, except that it's TfL who are a fine one to talk, since they're the ones who screwed up Crossrail's design to require level boarding with a high platform. Which means that it isn't level boarding, because it means that it is only level boarding within the central section tunnel stations and the purpose-built dedicated stations, not the mixed traffic stations. So TfL can't take the high road on this. They're the ones who've screwed up Crossrail horribly. That's some good news, some nice news. The LNR Trainbow is together, is the name of the Trainbow, and it's quite nice. I mean, in fact, it's not quite nice. I think it's brilliant. It's lovely. You can see the... this is the Progress Flag Plus. Is it? Oh, this is where I'm exposing myself and my ignorances. Is the circle with the line around it? Is that ACE or is it NB? People. No, I thought it. Anyway, I can't remember because I'm an ignoramus. But everyone in the chat will tell me. Thanks, everyone in the chat. You can update me. But it's and each coach subsequently has. So there's a coach for Trans Pride. There's a coach for Bi Pride. It's nice. It's very nicely representative. Yes, you're right. It's the gay train. We all love a gay train. Intersex. Thanks, Adam Evans. Yes, it's intersex. Thank you very much indeed. My ignorance. I'm an ignorant Luddite and have been. Thankfully brought forward by my wonderful audience. Thanks, everyone. The circle is intersex. There's like 20 people going intersex. That's why I love all of you lot. You're clever and modern, and that's why I surround myself with people who are cleverer than I am. Anyway, it's Gauge Wars. We're jumping into Gauge Wars again. This is a tweet from the Transport, who are obviously generally rubbish with railways, but what's quite interesting is that they're talking about conversion of major lines in Ukraine to standard gauge. I think it's a genuinely good idea. It's a very quick and easy way to screw over Russia, is that they just wouldn't be able to access the country using their trains. So, I mean, arguably Ukraine could have been doing this earlier, frankly, but it's very expensive to re-gauge railways. But standard gauge track, and yeah, there's a nice map showing that they're going to, the line through Kiev, and towards Kharkiv and out to Dnipro and all sorts of places that currently have a Russian flag flying over them, in fact, but hopefully at some point in the future will not. But yeah, it's all about some serious, and Moldova as well. So Moldova, like, although Moldova is a Russian proxy at the moment, isn't it? Is anyone willing to update me on that? I'm not 100% sure. In any case, standard gauge track, install standard gauge track, stop the Russians. Because the original thing about standard gauge track and Russian gauge track about being about stopping an invasion isn't correct. It's just it's a myth. But this, ironically, is making a reality of that myth, just the other way around, which is fun. Saying we'll fight Russian gauge in the trenches, etc. Michael C. Will it be full conversion or will it be dual gauge to allow interoperability with lines which aren't being converted? Yeah, good question. I think there will be interoperability. That can't have dual standard Russian gauge. It's very much total conversion or nothing. Oh yeah, I suppose it's too close together, so you have to just go for full conversion. Hopefully they'll do full conversion, then convert the branches as well, or perhaps have paralleling tracks. I'm not sure, but it would make sense to just expand the conversion. The advantage of standard gauge is that they can just buy off the shelf trains very easily. And lots more international stuff can run. It will very much bring Ukraine to the fold. Martha Lauren, thank you, Martha. Moldova, it's complicated, thank you. Moldova, anti-Russian, fear of getting invaded, powerful fear and driving them to the west. Yeah, excellent work, Russia. Transnistria is the Russian... Chris. Okay, thanks everyone. Yeah, this is why I love you lot, because it means that the people who listen to this after the fact get the information, but I'm here flailing around hopelessly and get informed by everyone in the chat. Just a shout out to everyone in the chat. Love you lot. You're what make this podcast work. 'Cause if it was just me, a loner saying stuff, it'd be rubbish. Yes, the separatists in Transnistria. That's right. Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, you'd need a weird custom double railhead. Yeah, that's right, Tom. Yeah, good point. So, right, we're jumping around a bit. Because no, not that gauge. Yes, this is a gauging-based story, but it's Simon. You're on the chat. Hello, Simon. It's one for you. This is about Network Rail laying out a £10 million plan. It hopes will unlock capacity for freight trains. 10 million quid for a gauge clearance project is not a small amount, but it's also not a large amount either. So I've worked on several gauge schemes. I worked on Doncaster to Leeds recently, what was called Yorkshire Terminals gauging as a project, and it was a 20 million quid capital expenditure project, and we ended up saving Network Rail we ended up spending 8 million instead of 20 million. So you can deliver gauge clearance for that sort of money, but it just depends on the complexity of the route. I've done quite a bit of work of gauge clearance assessments around this area. But yeah, sorry, I've not even said what this is. This is detailing 10 million plan to allow more freight through the channel. So it's connecting High Speed 1, which is obviously, not obviously, it's good, it has very good gauge clearance, European, broadly, whatever that actually means, GB loading gauge, which is not UK loading gauge, by the way, which is also a different thing. Confusingly, GB loading gauge is one of the names of the European loading gauge standards, but it has nothing to do with Great Britain. Sorry. So... Martha, I'd love to get read out first with the least useful comment. No. Simon saying, oh boy, which is good. I'm sure Simon's not going to say any more on this. 10 million quid is not very much money in the grand scheme of things, so it's worth spending it if you can get the gauge clearance. There's a load of continental intermodal traffic cannot pass over our classic route at the moment, so travels either on HS1 or actually just goes short. There should be no freight on HS1 for starters. Just get it off. It just should not be running on the high speed, on the fast lines. That shouldn't be happening. So... yes, the classic route from Donaldsmore to Wembley stood still since the early 90s, unable to cater for... Well, they're talking about W9A, but I'm hoping that they do as much W12 as they can. W9A and W12, there's not a huge amount of difference, but there are occasional substantial differences, and the difference in terms of operating benefit between W9A and W12 is pretty massive. Although in the same breath, the operators are getting cleverer with their wagon and swap body and container combinations. So W9A is a dynamic gauge, so it accounts for it's a sort of an infrastructure gauge, so it accounts for lots of combinations of wagon depth, suspension behavior, type, all the sorts of different variations of wagon and box on top as well, the different sizes that you get, because you get quite a few different variations. W9A is a bit annoying that we're going for W9A, because W9A is like it's such a 2000s era gauge. Like, we should be doing better. We should be aiming for W10A or W12. But anyway, it's still better than nothing. It's just ridiculous that we don't have, it's just, these sorts of things often involve underbridges, platforms, overbridges, occasionally tunnels, although probably not too many tunnels in this area. Oh, actually, maybe a couple of tunnels, actually, but mostly it'll be overbridges and centre gird or underbridges and things that get in the way. Often it's problems that are W6 problems, which is the standard go anywhere gauge around the UK, around GB, sorry. But the reality is we should have a rolling program of W12 clearance that should just be going around the country doing this stuff. They should just be spending about 50 million quid a year working their way around the country, clearing everything to W12, or ideally even a little bigger than that. So yeah, every little helps, but it's yet another. There are countless different rolling programs, resignaling, electrification, accessibility, platform corrections, and gauge clearance. Overall gauge clearance to W12 is another one. Well, let's talk about Paris very briefly. Paris are knocking it out of the park. So this is a nice little speech that was given at the end of June by the mayor of Paris. She was saying that car use in Paris is down 40% over the last 10 years. Air pollution down 45%. More than 5 times the number of cycle lanes now. 300 school streets coming in. Large number of initiatives to make streets safer for children and older residents. It'll be interesting to see the safety outcomes of that. Also, enormous investments in... absolutely enormous investments in public transport. There's a lot of money being spent on expansions to the metro. So lots and lots of stuff going on in Paris. Paris showing London and the UK how it's done. Because London, when was the last Crossrail? Oh, great. Why is there not an ongoing, continued program of metro expansions? London's a growing city, therefore the metro system should be growing as well. Anyway, yes, love to see Paris doing wonderful things. Makes me very happy. Campaign for North East Rail. I can believe that W10A... It's a joke because the difference between W10A and W12 is absolutely trivial. I know this because I have assessed the whole UK, the whole of GB on both, and I can tell you that the difference is basically nothing, and you should just go for W12. It's just... because people think the number's lower, they go, no, do it for the one below, and that's still great. It's like, no, just do everything to W12. Just spend the extra money. It's not that much. Just do it. So frustrating. No, W12 is definitely not enough for double-deckers, for sure. No. Double-deckers are bad on the UK railway network. Double-deckers, as in passenger double-deckers, are because we have limited platform space, and double-deckers require extended dwell time. So just forget also our platform height doesn't work with double-deckers. So forget double-decker trains. They're not a good idea in the UK. See my tweets out. I need to do a rail natter on double-deckers, don't I? Anyway, I digress. What else is going on? Translore continues its demise. Translore. I did a tweet thread when I was in Padova on Translore. Translore is the buses that have a stupid thing in the middle that guides them around, and they're designed to look like trams, even though it's just a bus, but kind of worse in every single way. So this article from Urban Transport Magazine pointing this out. This is the first of the systems to be fully decommissioned. This is in Shanghai. This is the Shanghai Pudong Modern Rail Transit Company Limited. Their bus tram nonsense is getting decommissioned. This is the key quote. Maintenance of the fleet of 9 Translore ST3 low-floor vehicles became increasingly complex and cost-intensive over the years as the system is no longer actively marketed after the takeover by Alstom Group. The supply of spare parts has remained difficult for years. Currently, only 4 vehicles are still operational. So that's 4 out of 9 vehicles. This is why you don't buy proprietary bullshit, everyone. Because these systems are proprietary. Why do you think I rant about gadget bans? This is a classic example. A conventional tram, there's nothing proprietary about it. It's under a standard system of OLE. It's under, of usually DC catenary. It's on rails set to a set gauge, whether it's standard gauge or another gauge. It has wheel profiles that are agreed by standards, all defined in standards. So any old moron, if they're complying with the standards, can deliver you that tram upgrade. There's no chance that something can expire. And okay, a company could go bust, and you might have a series of trams that are not non-maintainable, but you can probably get another company who builds trams to look after them, as has happened before, or you buy a new series of trams. This is why you don't go for stupid proprietary systems. Along with the fact that there are all sorts of other issues with these trams, like they're more expensive to build, they wreck the roads. They're just a bad system. Putting that to one side, just purely on the proprietary basis, do not go for these stupid systems. So good to see Translore continue its demise. Don't buy this crap. Wires a go-go in South Wales. Yes, TFW Wales doing their South Wales inverted commas metro. There's a nice picture of a blue flash as they electrify the first phase of the metro system, continuing with station signalling works. Yeah, so that's good news. Glad to see that is continue to rumble on, slower than we would like, and with a reduced scope, but it is happening at least. Right, rail industry staff in a bad state. Let's talk about, here's Noel as ever, well worth a follow. Tweets very interesting bits and pieces. If you work in the rail industry, you should read this. There is a narrative that everyone in the industry is well paid. Historically, it was mainly people who retired who needed help. Now, the majority who seek help from the Railway Benefit Fund are employed. It's a pretty grim statistic. Yes, so it's increasingly that the Railway Benefit Fund is supporting younger employed staff members, which is seriously grim, and it's a damning indictment on the state of our industry, frankly. So here's a load of stats. The number of applications has gone up by 100%. The referrals to the Citizens Advice Bureau between last year and between 2021 and 22 has gone up by 500% more. Good grief! The vast majority, the breakdown, retired and former railway workers are in the minority. About 2/3 are current railway workers. Demand up 257% since 2018. The number of children being supported by the I'm not such a fan of the pink and blue balloons. I see what they're doing, but come on now. 273 children being supported. It's just grim. Energy Support Fund, newly created, 1,000 inquiries received, £334,729 in financial support given in 2022. It's just grim. Key findings: 1 in 4 of all Railway Benefit Fund cases are people who face losing their homes. 2 people every month because they couldn't feed themselves or their families, usually after they accessed local food banks, meaning the RBF was their last line of support. The demographic has changed from a former railway worker in their 60s in need of funeral support, that's the common one in 2018, to a current railway worker in their 40s in need of debt support. In 2022, that's the shift over the 4 years. Grim. Total financial support increased by 25% on 2021. Demand has more than tripled in the last 5 years. As a direct response to the cost of living crisis, the RBF launched the Energy Support Fund with 1,000 inquiries towards that. So this is a really grim. So this is the reason I put this up is because if you see on Twitter or see wherever it is that you're seeing these discussions, this is what partly what RailNat is about. It's for you lot, you lovely lot, are the people who go out and have these conversations, and I'm trying to provide information that you can refer back to that allows you to make some informed debate, informed arguments in favour of or against certain stories or narratives. And on that similar theme, you know what I haven't done is I haven't politely altered all of my there we go, yeah, fine. On that theme, here we are. This is the famously left-wing organisation, the IMF here, the International Monetary Fund, explicitly laying out what the cause of inflation currently is. Rising corporate profits were the largest contributor to Europe's inflation over the past 2 years, as companies increased prices by more than the spike in cost of imported energy. Just in case you're wondering, let's get the old Wacom out. There we go. Let's see if I just go to... There we go. Sorry, I'm just getting me Wacom out. It's in the top corner here. You can see the red here is profits. And you can see profits in terms of a contribution to annual change in consumption deflator, so basically as a percentage of inflation. In the past, profits have been a sizable proportion. There we are, see, sizable proportion between 2017 and 2018. Again, a sizable proportion 2015, 2016. But the enormous shifting here in inflation, as you can see, yes, since 2021 through 2021 to 2022 and into 2023, it's profits. Certainly is not labour costs, and import prices are certainly having a factor as well. But you can see here that profits are a contributor to euro area inflation. Pretty grim, really. In fact, I've got a zoomed in version of the graph just for anyone who wants to see this more clearly. Not great, really. All that stuff about workers' wages causing inflation spirals was absolute piffle. Correct, Simon, but you knew this anyway. Taj Ali, who's written a few pieces that are well worth going and finding, by the way, on follow Taj Ali, Taj_Ali1 on Twitter. Taj done some fantastic pieces on the booking offices closures and the impacts on both passengers but also staff. Really well worth having a look at. pointing out politicians and pundits need to stop parroting the myth that pay rises are driving inflation. Inflation is soaring amid the longest period of wage stagnation since the Napoleonic Wars. According to the IMF, corporate profiteering is the single biggest cause of rising inflation. Absolutely. So, and on a similar theme, I'm afraid, the Equality Trust here is referring to new ONS, the new ONS cost of living survey, pointing out that 1 in 20 report running out of food and have been unable to afford to buy more. That's 5% of people running out of food and unable to buy more food. And showing how this is spread unequally. So if we go into their data, you can see this is a stark graphic. So to give you an idea of the sorts of people who are suffering in the cost of living crisis. The majority on prepayment meters. The majority are renters. The majority are mixed or other ethnicities, or Black African, Caribbean, or Black British. And the majority are single parents. So these kind of Venn diagram of these overlapping, this is the people answering answering yes to, in the past 2 weeks, have you or your household run out of food and could not afford to buy more? Absolutely grim. What a state of our country. Just shocking. Absolutely shocking. Right. In a jarring shift of tone, well, not that jarring actually. Some good things are happening in the US. Jared Bray, shout out to Jared, worth a follow in Philly. A rare bit of good bit of transit news. A new tax created by Minnesota lawmakers is expected to raise $450 million a year for Twin Cities Transit. Enough to wipe out Metro's operating deficit and add about $300 million a year to its budget. That's good. Extra money on the budget. $300 million. Is nothing to be sniffed at. That's enough to do match funding with capital investment or to invest in additional maintenance and or additional services, additional operating revenue. That's good stuff. So that's there's some good news going on. Happy days. The chat has died. I don't know where the chat's gone. Chat, are you still there? Someone say something. See if you're still here. Actually, I have the technology to do this. There. Good. So this is also a fun thing. I put simply, I like this. There's Trevor Stone on Twitter pointing out an interesting reuse of seats from a Greater Anglia Mark III coach on platforms 1 and 2 at Ashford International, where Starbucks appears to have repurposed the table, well, possibly the tables, but certainly the chairs from the nicely reclined chairs from a Mark III coach. I quite like this. It's good fun. Good stuff, yeah. I like this. This is fun. They're probably not the easiest seats to clean and look after, but it is a fun retro thing. I like this. These seats combined with the bar that I love directly underneath Waterloo Bridge would be my ideal bar aesthetic, I think. So, I do need to exaggerate my Scottish accent every now and then. Now that I've got this new microphone, I really should be everyone. Welcome to tonight's Rail Natter. Anyway, I digress. On-demand buses, probably bad. This is a bit of grim reading. Dr. Kevin Tennant and I have talked about permanence of the permanent way. In fact, it's a very popular episode, and it's a fantastic episode that really embeds and anchors everything about Rail Natter and why I advocate for railways so vigorously. And this is a good example because buses, the permanence of buses is also key. Having permanent bus stops, having permanent timetables. I've always been a skeptic of on-demand buses, and I have to say this story is a sorry tale. So Gareth Forrest here pointing, hello Gareth. I spent many meetings in West Yorkshire Combined Authorities Wellington House arguing with senior councillors about why this is not a replacement for a reliable bus service and would never work. We knew it would fail, passengers wouldn't use it, and yet millions of pounds were spent to end this. How many millions? Multiple millions. Yeah, so here's Bus and Train User has been capturing the story of this, which is great. Thank you, Bus and Train User. Your Bus in North Yorkshire, gone. Flexi in Blenheim Gwent, off-peak, gone. Novus Flex in Leicestershire, going. Flexibus in East Leeds, which is what this story is about, is going. And that's so far this month. So there's just the absolute demise of flexible on-demand buses. They're a dreadful idea. And millions of pounds were spent, multiple millions of pounds were spent on these trials, when actually it'd be far better. So go to Bus and Train Users' website, by the way, to get the full lowdown on this. It's a really grim tale. £40 a ride sees plug pulled on East Leeds DRT. Yeah, just DRT. Craig Thurston saying, DRT scheme seems to last about 15 seconds beyond the initial funding run. Martha Lauren, preferably permanent bus and train timetables that connect with each other. See also Martha and I's previous episode. Absolutely. Yeah, this is just grim. DRT buses fail often a year after they win a big award. Joke that was going to happen in Aberdeen was correct. Lol. Yes. Yeah. Who could have seen this coming? Is bus and train user Roger Ford? Really? No, I don't think it is. Raphael. Yeah, this is just a cab. Exactly. It might as well just be a cab. Precisely. Like, cabs are fine. They are part of the at the extreme edges. You could argue that a cab, that sort of on-demand, is fine, but far better to just have a bus that serves any population centre of more than 100 people that is frequent as hell. Anyway, another quick change. Let's talk about the UCU. I should have been wearing my UCU hat for this. Funnily enough, strikes work. The university, what is it? University remunerated supplement. Basically, the massive pensions fund that is universities is £7.4 billion in surplus, and they're going to and the UCU is going to, or rather, all members' pensions and the cost of their monthly contributions are going to be so pensions are going to be restored, cost of contributions massively reduced, and this would simply not have happened without the strikes. So it's another case of a very successful series of hard work but necessary strikes that have once again striking workers, because striking workers who are in the minority of university workers overall, I believe. University Superannuation Service, thank you, Tom, have won this for everyone. This is the time for those other workers to join the union and quit whining and going, oh, nothing works, because a union that you are not a part of has just won your ass a huge pension benefit that you would have lost. You would have lost without the UCU fighting for it. And absolutely, as Tony Badilli here is pointing out, don't let anyone tell you this would have happened without the sacrifice of UCU strikers. And if you doubt that, by the way, they've all sacrificed a lot of pay. So that's a lot of people who have sacrificed a lot of pay getting a benefit for a lot of people who have not sacrificed a lot of pay. Join the union. If you're in the university, join the union. And if you doubt that, know that the improved state of USS was anticipated by everyone, but it still took all the strikes of last year to move Universities UK to even think about benefit restoration. Absolutely. Yes, good stuff. Strikes work. Quit whining and give up the benefit. Simples. Yeah. London used to lead in Paris, fallen out of the round. Oh, public transport. Yeah, you're right, Phil. You're a little behind, but yeah, agreed. Now, talking of Paris and London, Eurostar, a sad shell of its former self. Thanks, actually, Phil Two Hoots. You gave me an excellent segue there. Sharon O'Day. Oh my goodness, Sharon, I'm so sorry. Yeah. Deirdre, where are you? I need you. Anyway, yes, this is just showing the map of Eurostar services, and all of them crossed out, other than London, Lille, Brussels, and Paris. Pretty grim situation, isn't it? What should be the connection from London to the rest of Europe, and really ought to be, continues to be a bit of an embarrassment. Like, it should be London, Paris, Berlin, Madrid. You know, that we should be having connections across Europe, and we still do not. It's shocking. It's rubbish, and it's not necessarily entirely because of Eurostar as an organisation. It's partly because of the UK's just lack of belief in supporting Eurostar. They treat it like it's well, I mean, to be fair, also because Eurostar is treated like a flight operator, not a train operator. Anyway, there's some of the happy news. Sleeper's hours again. Let's see what this means for the Caledonian Sleeper. But yes, as of the 25th of June, the Caledonian Sleeper moved back into operation, moved to Scottish Rail Holdings, which is just basically the Scottish Government's holding company. Indeed, and as we get closer and closer to my ultimate dream of this branding for the Caledonian Sleeper, yeah. Martha Lawrence pointing out that the Eurostar demand is that the high fares is indicating that demand is not being met because they have to price people off? Yes, absolutely. Yes, 100%. They could expand it massively. Anyway, here's the Caledonian Sleeper with Rail Alphabet, but keeping the Caledonian Sleeper logo thing because I kind of like it. Yes, this is the dream, isn't it? Right, okay, some pretty grim news. Well, some slightly more lighthearted, but also some grim news here, and really pretty horrible news. So, content warning: descriptions of images from rail crashes coming up. The OG buffer stop report has been published by the RAIB. We'll do a page turn of this because there's some interesting and some less. There's some very interesting and some quite a bit less interesting stuff in this report. So we'll do a page turn of this for sure. This is the OG buffer stop report because this is the one that, of course, this is at Enfield Town Station back in October 21. This led to the buffer stop episode, which was the live episode. Shout out to everyone who attended the live episode. It was lovely to see you. And it was the 100th episode of Rail Natter, which was live, and I will do another live show at some point. I'm looking forward to doing so. I shall. Good and bad ways to stop errant trains. Of course, also led to Rate My Buffers. So that report, well worth a read. Now, in quite a lot more serious and upsetting news, we have to talk about the fact that nearly 300 people were killed in Odisha in India. Southern India, just an absolutely just shocking, an absolutely shocking scale of collision here. There's more. Go away. There we are. Sorry, I'm being pestered by something going on over here, which is not helpful. Thank you. Actually, it's not really southern India. It's Odisha's in. It's kind of in. Yeah, very much over in eastern India. Thank you. This crash. The collision involved. I'm sure this is going to get picked up, and perhaps and I think it'd be wrong to do anything else. Need to do it justice by waiting for the final reports and reading through those and doing a full episode. But it's a collision that involved 3 trains. Well, actually, technically 4 trains, I think. Yes. Wait a minute. I'm just going to go. Let me just do. I wish there was a freeze in OBS. I'm just going to go to. I was going to very briefly go to Big Face because I think I've put something somewhere that I need over here. Yes. That's what I was looking for. There we go. Fine. So you can see the mess that's gone on here. This is a horrific crash. Over 1,000. I think what is it, like 1,200 people seriously injured from this. Involved 3 trains with a 4th train nearby. In fact, you can see the fourth train, the goods train, kind of involved. It's looking increasingly like it's a Clapham Junction type incident where there's a wrong side failure, possibly from construction work. Still not 100% clear. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors because it's obviously hyper politicized. The political situation in India is a mess anyway, with obviously a pseudo dictator in the form of Modi, ethno-nationalist government that does not like to see dissent, and so there's obviously there's a within the organisation a culture of dip out, retire and shame, but without and sort of assume that sort of solves the problem. But actually, there's quite a lot more going on here. There's a letter that's been circulating, which highlighted that there were problems being picked up of wrong side failures, and that there need to be serious steps taken to rectify these flaws. So this has been raised already. This is a letter by the Principal Chief Operations Manager of the South Western Railway, pointing right into the headquarters, going, this is their problems that we're seeing. Serious unsafe incident happened on a section of one of the divisions involving train X, train Y, very similar to this circumstance of the crash at Odisha. In fact, it's just there's a lot more to be. Yeah, it's just absolute. Yeah, Lim Manfu pointing out that it involved 2 of Indian Railway's busiest long distance trains. Yeah, one of them is one of their super fast, kind of one of their just 2 express trains that are often very, very full. Hence the numbers involved here, just horrific numbers of people killed in this crash. Just Fred, just in case anyone's got, Indian Railways is an incredibly modern operation generally. Okay, yes, the trains often look like they're a bit battered up, generally it's a pretty modern operation with pretty decent levels of generally pretty decent levels of maintenance. So for this to and kind of rigorously enforced standards, for this to happen, something that's gone wrong, and there's likely to be organizational problems involved. It's a situation where we probably have already seen people falling on their sword for this, but so to speak. But the reality is that there's a lot of organizational problems and potentially problematic, political issues that are underlying this. Can I explain a wrong side failure, Martha? Yes, I can. Wrong side failure is where you have a failure of the signaling system. Signaling system should always fail safe. That is that the lights, if they go off, they're treated as red, or if there's a problem, all the lights go to red, or signals show danger. A wrong side failure is where something shows proceed. So a signal shows a proceed aspect instead of a danger aspect, a stop aspect. So you end up with a failure that is dangerous, a more dangerous situation. So yes, that's a wrong side failure. And a wrong side failure is what caused the Clapham rail disaster in the UK in 1988, which claimed the lives of a lot of people. Again, collision of 3 trains into each other. It was a construction works that had involved a loose bit of conducting cable kind of making a contact and resulting in a green light showing where a red light should have been showing. And that's sort of the situation that appears to have been going on here, with some additional organizational workarounds that looked messy and have caused some problems. But this is, more to be said on this, I think, when some of the mist clears. I think it would be good to get anyone who's more of an expert, more familiar with with particularly the Southwestern Railway over India and the way that company operates. It'd be good to have you on and chat about this. Pretty grim situation. Jumping to politicians continuing to be problematic. Mark Harper, who is the worst Transport Secretary the UK has had in a very long time, is giving us some tidbits here. Here's a little tweet from him, quote from his writing in the Tory graph. As Transport Secretary and a Conservative, I believe in giving people more choice on how to travel, not banning cars from places. That's why I've stopped funding for any new LTNs. So this is wrong on a number of levels. Firstly, he doesn't have the power to do that. Secondly, obviously car dominance reduces choice, does not increase choice, so he's stoking culture war nonsense. But yeah, Harper is just doing culture war pratism. So yeah, bad stuff. So what else? Yeah, meanwhile, so while he's coming out of that rubbish, the government is facing a legal challenge over its cuts to cycling and walking in England, with funding for the rest of this parliament outside of London at £1 per person a year, compared to Scotland spending £58 per person per year. Yeah, it's pretty stark. What else? Oh yeah, some reports being released in June about air quality on board trains, and the fact that we have lots of small engines very tightly packaged underneath trains that should be fully electrified, that are sort of the IETs specifically, that are pumping out horrible NOx and poisoning passengers horribly. And so the RSSB released a report, kind of a research report, T-report, T1188, and the DFT Science Advisory Council have responded and said, yeah, sure, but obviously there's nothing they can just respond. There's nothing politically they can actually say that's going to happen. They're just saying, well, government is decarbonising and that'll be great and that'll solve this problem. It's like, well, yeah, you could just electrify the railways. Meanwhile, HS2 grinds on. This is table stakes at this point. The Public Accounts Committee are pointing out that the DFT does not know what it's trying to achieve with HS2's Euston Station. That's because they don't know what they're trying to achieve with transport at all. This is the whole point. This is the whole problem. This is why this project was sold so poorly. It's because England and more broadly the UK has no transport strategy at all. There is no plan for what transport needs to look like because government refuses to make one. And until that happens, the reality is we know what it should have been done because the original HS2 plan was there on the table fine. It's just that DFT was like, but can we work our way around that? Maybe not do any of that. Because DFT want the answer to be do as little as possible, but do as little as possible does not apply when you have a high-speed rail station under construction. And under all this, Mark Thurston's had enough. Mark Thurston's off, leaving as chief exec, pointing out that he's the UK's best paid civil servant. Well, yeah. the amount of shit that HS2 has to do with, I'd want to be getting paid big money as well. So he's leaving as construction moves, as he's saying, into an exciting new stage. There's very little left of it. Yeah. And also, meanwhile, the irony is that, all that happening, and Harper's in Japan tweeting out stuff about Shinkansen and saying, Transport Secretary Mark Harper took a ride on a Shinkansen bullet train in Tokyo to see some of the benefits high-speed rail could bring to the UK to provide better access to jobs around the country and grow the economy. Just absolutely unreal. I just absolutely that guy. Anyway, what's quite funny though is that under this DFT tweet, so this DFT tweet got 165 likes as of my check this morning, and my tweet underneath has exactly 10 times as many likes, which I enjoy. I didn't expect to ratio the DFT into this one, but I had fun doing so. Yes, I simply stated, you've cut and delayed the one high-speed rail project that we have. What are you on about, man? And that seemed to chime a chord with those seeing the tweet. Anyway, meanwhile, what else is going on? Yeah, Stonehenge Tunnel is back to going ahead again, even though this is a bad and pointless scheme. There's probably an episode in this, to be honest, and explaining why I think it's a pointless scheme. Lots of people here are saying that no, it is necessary because of the blight and just build a hedge, just put a hedge around the existing road. Anyway, also there's this thing called the West of England line that is a single-track mainline railway that could be upgraded to double-track, fully electrified. That might solve some of your problems. Yes, so, yes, aggravating as hell. Absolutely aggravating as hell. Anyway. Meanwhile, a desperate UK government, because at the moment, if you're to have any involvement whatsoever in the car manufacturing industry, you need to be building batteries. The UK government has seen several opportunities for battery factories fold in on themselves, and so they've bribed Tata. Legally, they've not bribed anyone. That's merely a humorous assertion. No, they have. Heavily subsidised to the tune of multiple billions of pounds, Jaguar Land Rover via Tata to build a battery factory in Somerset. This is probably the worst possible deal that you can imagine. I would definitely OLE it, not third rail it. Pretty much all trains that currently run third rail can have OLE, so have it as overheads. We don't need to be building any new third rail. Just do it as overheads. There are a couple of little stopgap third rail sections that I would say, but for a line like that, no, absolutely it should be OLE. Anyway, so the UK government has just paid billions for this battery plant, and what's funny is so you can see here is Dermot Haney here pointing out sources said a significant level of subsidy has been provided, which are likely to be in the form of cash grants, discounts on the cost of energy, and training and research funding. The size of the incentive package has not been disclosed. It'll be basically 100% of the construction costs. I have zero doubt that we have so many other projects have stumbled. The UK government will have just said, we will pay for this. Please come here. We'll just pay for this entirely. There's just no chance. Donald Brannigan's asking if their Rail Natter subscription has funded my Swear Bleeper button. You're right, it has. So anyway, batteries. Marvellous. Let's talk about, on a similar theme, let's talk about automaker advertising, shall we? Why are we going to talk about this? Well, we're going to talk about it because Ketan J0 on Twitter annoyingly removed their name and has replaced it with their Blue Sky login, which is confusing. Car manufacturers, most of which brag about having set net zero targets, are actively and desperately trying to push their customers into buying significantly more damaging, unsafe and unhealthy big cars. There's a new report on this. It's a very interesting report. I'd recommend going in. One of the interesting parts of the report is that if you have a look at the some of the numbers in here, it goes into the details of how much they're spending on different types of vehicle, and you can see that spending on, so there's this Autobrad sponsorship, fine. There's the spending that's interesting is the level of spending on SUVs versus medium-large cars, which has dropped to zero, and micro and small cars, which has dropped to nearly zero. So these, if I just clear this, this one, this one and this one are the relevant ones you want to look at. So micro small cars 0, medium large cars close to 0, SUVs a large amount of funding. Now, why might that be, I wonder? That's because it costs the same to build a small car as it costs to build an SUV. But you can charge an enormous amount of money for an SUV, whereas you cannot justify charging the same amount of money for a small car, so the margin is greater on an SUV. Don't think that people's personal preference for SUVs is why more SUVs are sold. That's bollocks. That just completely ignores the reality of the situation. SUVs are being bought in larger numbers because auto sellers are pushing SUVs on people. People would not have taken up smoking if it wasn't for tobacco companies pushing cigarettes on everyone. It's the same situation. What's quite interesting about this report is that they've converted that into looking at compiling those figures along with the mean CO2 emissions per kilometre for those types of ranges, the types of vehicle ranges. They can tell us who is the greatest, based on the advertising. They can see the CO2 impact of that advertising. So that Toyota are the ones who are reaping the carbon disasters because their advertising budget for their various enormous horrible cars are resulting in their advertising budget is huge. Biggest impact by far and large is Toyota. 5 of the 6 vehicles using the analysis are SUVs. Only the RAV4 and the Kluger are currently available in a hybrid configuration. Behind them, Mazda, Hyundai, Mitsubishi, Kia, and then some other ones kind of there. So you can see serious budget being spent on car advertising. And SUVs feature highly. So, yes, not good. Yes, absolutely, Raphael. Yeah, lots of interesting stuff in the chat there. What else? Let's talk about COP28 while we're on the subject of greenwashing. COP28 is just a miserable sham. This whole thing, the idea that COP28 was awarded to the UAE is just absolutely baffling. The Sultan Al Jaber is the chief exec of UAE's Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, also the president of this year's COP28 UN Climate Summit, and the state oil firm has been able to read all of the COP28 Climate Summit emails. It's just baffling that this just makes a whole sham of COP as an idea. Just obviously nonsense. For COP to have been awarded to the UAE, this is just a joke. I'm going to briefly go big face because there's some interesting discussion going on. So, yes, people in the chat saying even the electric car adverts seem to be dominated by SUVs. If you remember the chat we had with Thea, what we need, Professor Thea Riofrancos, what we need is smaller vehicles with smaller batteries, and that way we can stretch lithium out and lithium mining isn't a total disaster. We can make we can have that sort of potentially acceptable transition. That's not going to work if we're having much bigger vehicles. It just isn't going to happen. We need smaller vehicles with smaller batteries. We need more aerodynamic vehicles. We need vehicles better shaped and suited to the future. And we should just not be SUVs should just not be on the road. I mean, they should just be absolutely regulated out of existence. They should be costing such that you cannot buy an SUV. You should be aiming for light vehicles, smaller batteries, longer ranges, but smaller batteries because you have a lighter vehicle. It's like rocket science. You add more battery weight, you need more battery to get the range. It's a vicious cycle. Anyway, right. So jumping a bit on the back of the greenwashing, the way to respond to some of this stuff is of course, and the IPPR brought out a really interesting little paper along with other things that I've been talking about, a Bolster Treasury themed papers coming out, saying that now is the time to confront the UK's investment phobia. Invest, invest, invest. That is the story. And Dermot Haney again picking up this, pointing out that this nice quote. There's a couple of quotes actually. If the economy is the engine of a country, investment is its fuel, but the UK's tank is running on empty and it's harming economic growth, driving inequality and slowing the pathway to net zero and energy security. Yeah, well, we know this stuff. That's what we talk about in Rail Natter all the time. Oh, get rid of the poll. Yeah, okay, I'll end the poll. Thanks. 94% of people are still here. Good. 6% of people aren't, though. That's fascinating. Thanks to the 6% of people who aren't here. I'd probably count myself among them. There's another kind of line of here, which is public. This line is important. Public investment by national, local, and devolved governments is low and has never been above average for the OECD or the G7. If the public sector had been similarly average in the G7 over the same period, the British government would have invested an additional £208 billion in real terms. Combining public and private investment, this would total an additional £563 billion, or over £500 billion over 16 years in real terms. For comparison, this would be 14 times the investment needed to build Northern Paris Rail or High Speed 3, estimated cost £39 billion, or 30 times the cost of the Elizabeth Line, cost £19 billion. So when I talk about how much more should be getting invested, this is why I get angry, because we could have it so much better. And there's an interesting story by Amy Borrett in the FT, really interesting piece, looking at how much the UK underperforms and our cities underperform. And it's a point that I've made repeatedly, everyone. And Andir is saying, hi from India. There are a couple of similar accidents in the month before Odisha. Singapore accident between two freight trains. Thanks, Anand. Thank you very much indeed. So here's Amy's piece. It's in the FT. Well worth going and finding. I don't think it's behind paywall. I think you can go and read it. So very good piece. Go and have a read. It's got this graphic showing that. So here's the UK. Here's so whilst London does pretty well compared to for example Berlin, Paris doing a bit better now. Rome doing less well than Berlin, and Madrid doing even less well. So that's London. But if you look at the second largest cities, so you've got Brum and Manchester there. You can see that they're greatly underperforming, and in fact, if you look at this bar chart here, this spread of cities in the UK, we're just horribly underperforming if you compare to certainly to Germany and France, relative to their size. Absolutely, pretty depressing state of affairs. Actually, it's interesting that Germany's second and third cities are doing better than Berlin. There you go. Interesting. Anyway, is this Milan up here, by the way? Probably is, isn't it? Anyway, I digress. The point of this is that why is that happening? Well, because of car dependence is why. So there's some very interesting analysis looking at the fact that access to Manchester's job market is highly dependent on cars. So the ratio of jobs accessible in 30 minutes by car against those accessible by public transport. You can see that it's just a very interesting spread in terms of the cities that are best and worst off in this respect. So London, Nottingham actually all right, has trams I suppose. Liverpool with Merseyrail maybe. Interestingly, like Crawley, Guildford and Aldershot. Leicester weirdly in there. Brum, so it's interesting. So there's a ratio of accessibility, but also just the fact that because of the lack of public transport, Manchester, Birmingham have essentially quite small city centres, so aren't performing as well. There's all these agglomeration benefits, and there's lots of like economic mumbo jumbo in amongst this. But there are material reasons why having a larger city centre that has a greater pool of people accessible to it is good from any political angle. It's a good thing. Certainly from a socialist perspective, having more people having more access to more stuff, cleanly, cheaply, and efficiently and safely, because roads are not safe, and reducing all the stress and noise and all this other stuff associated with cars is just a good thing. And in a similar thing, if you can get Tim Dunn doing political tweets, then clearly the situation is bad news. Lower Saxony in Germany pointing out 54 lines for reopening. There's Tim getting excitable about just saying friends working at DFT, levelling up nonsense, and Treasury. Just leaving a little story here. Thanks Tim for leaving this here. Yes, pointing out that the reality of okay, so it's still identifying lines for inverted commas reopening. I think there's a lot of these lines are kind of dusty and still have the tracks in them, unlike in the UK. So bad news. Anyway, and as we've seen a lot, and this is so true for the railways and railway. In fact, I'd say it's arguably more true for the railway press, because the railway press as an even more narrow demographic than the wider press. Andy Verity here, who's the BBC's economics correspondent. Here's something the review of the BBC's coverage of issues like tax and the public finances said recently. This is a quote from the BBC itself. Too often it's not clear from a report that fiscal policy decisions are also political choices. They're not inevitable. It's just that governments like to present them that way. The language of necessity takes subtle forms. If the BBC adopts it, it can sound perilously close to policy endorsement. Absolutely. That's true for anyone writing in the railways. When you write about the fact that money has run out, there's no money, that is a political statement. It is not an economic reality. You should be very careful about that wording. I'm looking at you, modern railways in particular, but others are guilty of it as well. Rail certainly is guilty of it. Everyone who's writing in the rails, anything about the rail sector, needs to be very careful about the wording they use, because it is not an economic reality. It is not. It's a political, ideological statement to say that there is no money or that the money is tight. That is not an economic reality. It's not an agreed economic reality. And Andy continues. He says, wise words. So when government or opposition uses the language of necessity, we can't do X because we can't afford to, due skepticism should be applied. They may be dressing up a subjective political choice as an objective reality. Hashtag Sir Kid Starver. Making us think running out of money is as much of a real risk for a sovereign government issuing its own currency as it is for a household or firm, but it's simply not. Obviously, Andy's thread continues. I've asked Andy if he wants to come on Rail Natter, actually. Yes. So this is absolutely key. These are things that just... It's just such an important point. I just want to press on this point. On a similar thread, the Climate Change Committee in the UK has published its report saying how progress is on all of our climate change action, and only 9 of 50 measures are currently being successful. For example, public transport demand being grown is no target set. The number of car kilometres being reduced, too early to say. All of these are kind of road-related things, annoyingly, and they're all either off track, slightly off track, or the only one that's on track is the sale of electric cars. But as I've said, it's not a good thing, everyone. So yes, obviously I strongly disagree with the CCC on their priorities for decarbonisation. The top of the list should be public transport demand, not bottom of the list. But anyway, lots of other issues as well. So, we've talked about hydrogen use in the previous episode, and that's like just a mess, not reported or off target. But certainly the things off target: electric van sales, solar PVs for energy supply off target, energy efficiency measures in buildings off target, heat pump installations off target, heat pump costs are off target, trained heat pump installers off target, private sector targets in industry are off, industrial process emissions are off target, planting of new woodland is off target, peatland restoration and an anaerobic digestion both off target. So quite the mess. And a load of other stuff that's off target. That's significantly off target, by the way. There's a load of other stuff that is quite a lot off target. So problems. Deborah Bynum is saying, this comment from Jan Rosenow in this thread underscores the severity of the situation. In only 7 years, the recent rate of annual emissions reduction outside the electricity supply sector must therefore quadruple. As I say, invest, invest, invest. Meanwhile, Keir Starmer is allowing, or Keir Starmer's press team are allowing potentially spurious articles, quotes and spurious quotes about the fact that he hates tree huggers. It might well be that this is nonsense, but this is being allowed to be printed. A press team would not be allowing this to be printed. They'd be disputing it and saying it's incorrect. They'd be briefing it as incorrect. They did not. Notable absence of any counteracting briefing. Which means that they're allowing this to go into the public sphere, which means that they basically mean this. Very depressing. So you've got that sort of I'm not interested in hope and change. Actually, have I got the quote? I don't have the quote. I deliberately didn't pull the quote because it was just depressing. But hopefully you've all seen the Keir Starmer hates tree huggers story. Wanting to ditch the Green Party, the party's green agenda. A lot of people got upset. They were like, "Oh, this is false briefing. That's not what they think." But I'm sorry, but literally on a month previously, Rachel Reeves had already cancelled and watered down the Labour $28 billion a year Green Projects pledge. This is a critical pledge. This is one of the few things I was clinging on to, and this has been watered down to the point of being ditched already. Sir Kid Starver. Yes. So, and then other things like both parties saying that they're funding a permanent increase in pay within the current spending envelopes, which is, as Jonathan Portis here is saying, to state the blinding obvious, you can't fund a permanent pay increase baked into future pay with current underspend, which just illustrates that the government's public spending plans post-2024 are complete friction and they know it. So we're heading into an election where the government's spending plans are quite simply deliberately fraudulent, and the opposition claims they will, except for some minor tweaks, stick to them. Mad. I'm going to close Jonathan's brackets there just to de-stress everyone. Yeah, so that's very frustrating. Oh, let's just talk about the RTG as well, an organisation I look forward to never existing again. The RTG have done a thing. They're doing some stuff, They're out there pretending they're in charge of stuff, doing little reports. They've done a little report that's commissioned a new tool to calculate the industry's carbon footprint more accurately, and they're suggesting that rail travel is far more carbon efficient than previously thought. Well, this is not a surprise to me. Fine. We're nearing the end of the news, by the way. We're nearly at the end. We're getting into the kind of the pudding at the end of the news. There's not much more. There was a lot piled up. I'm sorry, everyone. It's like a month and a half of news stories. Very brief thoughts on the Campaign for Better Transport. I have some problems with the Campaign for Better Transport, but they kind of do some good stuff, and I think they're a little cozy with government, as often happens. The same with RIA and other organisations. They're useful to get cozy. They're useful to a point, but you have to manage their coziness with government. But I want to talk about this messaging. So they've done this graphic here. And the new report shows that switching half of the most popular UK domestic flight journeys to rail would save passengers time and money and save this many tons of carbon. Can we just talk about this graphic? Because this doesn't mean anything to anyone. Switching half of the top 20 UK domestic flights to rail. Okay, so that's already confusing. So this is really, really bad messaging. And I know I'm not a professional messaging, but the CBT should be better at this stuff. Switching half the top... No, just say switching half of UK domestic flights, right? Switching half of UK domestic flights. Why is it top 20? That's just confusing. That's confusing to people. So just sort of say... basically say switching half of UK domestic flights to rail. But then, okay, so you're saving this much CO2. What does that mean? How much is that? Is that a lot? Well, I know that that's not actually a lot, because roads emissions are, what are they? Every month they're about, 10? 12? More now, probably. Tons of CO2 a month. So that's million. So this is a third of a million. So this is shit all. This is about 1%, less than 1%. I'm not saying it's not important, but that's not a lot. So are people, be clear about this. The 1.25 billion miles, again, like, that sounds nice, but what does that mean? People need to know relatively to the overall figures, not just an absolute number. That's just not useful. Taking that many cars off the road, okay, so that's getting closer to be helpful, but how many cars are on the road currently? Well, it's quite a few million. In fact, it's, what is it, like 80 million cars on the road or something like that? It's some insane number. So what? So what? It's really bad. It's really, really bad campaigning. It's really bad messaging. No one knows. That's fine. That's just stats for the sake of creating a graphic. What does that mean? What is that meaningful? Is it worth doing that, or actually are we better? What are we better doing? Or what does this actually mean? It's just really bad messaging. Sorry, I'm aggravated by it. So let's cheer ourselves up with the very kind of our last couple of stories. Loopy Hype lives on. Yeah, Hyperloop Week in Edinburgh is still a thing for some stupid reason. Maybe I should go and crash it in a future year and ask what it's still going on about. So they've got their vacuum pipe. They fire the little Hyperloop thing. I know this is supposed to be an engineering project. It's a bit like primary school kids firing the eggs into the air in a rocket and then landing it with a parachute. Except that the trouble is the messaging with this isn't that. Because it's saying innovation in the sustainable high-speed transport sector and explore the limitless possibilities of Hyperloop technology. No, Hyperloop technology is hugely limited. It's crap. See this podcast, and God knows everything I've ever talked about so much more before. So this messaging, the Loopy Hype messaging, continues to live on. It's rather aggravating to me, given that I can understand why Lumo are buying into it. Lumo are Lumo just first group anyway. Anyway, whatever. So let's talk about happy things. We're going to end on some happy news, which is that Dave Grohl absolutely still remains completely based. Just here he is taking a GWR train. It's nice that GWR are saying, yeah, even Rock Royalty knows there's no better way to travel to Glastonbury than by train. Yes, it's Dave Grohl just hanging out on on a GWR train making his way to Glastonbury. Just absolutely based. Love it. Just shout out to Dave Grohl, and just our pro-trans, pro-LGBTQ plus boy here. Just an all-round good egg, I believe, is Dave Grohl here. Lots of time for him. Yes, I know people are saying this. I do have a lot of time for the Shadow Transport Secretary of State for Transport. Louise Haig. She's good. Will she be still in post, and how much will she do given the state of what Rachel Reeves and others are up to around her in the party? I don't know. Based or based? Good question, Rafael Nicolaus. Yes, very good question. Yes. Anyway, right. Dave Grohl. Happy days. Oh my goodness me. Everyone, thanks for joining. That was a bit of a longer one. Not too much longer. Pro trans, pro trains. Dave Grohl based. Absolutely. Yeah. But has anyone got their East Midlands Railway contact out there to create an East Midlands Railway they them badge for miles? Anyone got on that? Anyone? I'm waiting. I'm waiting. Well, we're waiting. Anyway, that'd be good fun. Anyway, right, enough of me waffling. Let's get on with this. Right, audio only people, hello. Hopefully you've got... I'd love a Rail Natter with Dave Grohl. The chance of me getting Dave Grohl on Rail Natter are low. Is it going to stop me trying? Probably. I don't know what I'd talk about. It'd be fun to get Dave Grohl on. He's a busy man. What would I ask him? Thoughts in the Discord server. Anyway, audio only people, thanks for listening. Always a pleasure to have you along. Hopefully this stitched... I don't know how our news story is good or bad on audio only. I don't know. Patreon.com/Gareth Dennis to continue supporting me. Honestly, your support is incredibly valuable. It justifies my time, which is invariably and hugely limited at the moment. It's only going to get more limited as I'm changing jobs at the moment, which is exciting. But also, baby. GarethDennis.co.uk/merch for the merchandise. I am about to write a large comedy check for York LGBT Forum from the income from the Pride Tea. So I need to create another one of those, which should be fun. I took a screenshot of a thing that inspired me and made me think of a new possible alternative tea that I'm going to do. Anyway, yes. So more on that. As I say, all proceeds to the Pride Tees go to York LGBT Forum. PayPal.me/Gareth Dennis for loose change and abuse. GarethDennis.uk/Discord for the Discord server. Come and join us on the Discord server where lots of this will happen and continue happening. The chat will continue forever. Anyway, right. Oh, yes. I was on Trash Future. Enter the Railway Ronin. Last episode I was on. I've been on quite a few episodes now, and I Great Train Robbery, Murder in the Dark, and Dagenham Express, Taking Britain 1, 2, 3, Trash Future, Avanti West Coast, and then the most recent episode. That's 5 Trash Future TFs I've been on. Always a pleasure. Always good fun. But yeah, go listen. It was good fun. Also, I haven't really plugged these. I was on. I've been on 2 other podcasts. I was on Podcast is Practice. I was on with the gang talking about HS2. And also, I was on with the Road CC gang talking about bikes on trains, and I got very aggravated in that episode. So this, if you want more me, and good grief, isn't there enough of me around? Then you can go and listen to that and enjoy it. Next week, oh, now this is exciting. Next week, actually titled TBC because I still yet to hear back from Alex's PA to confirm. Episode 176, A Week in the Life of a Railway Manager. We have Alex Hines on. The literal boss of ScotRail is joining us on Rail Natter. That's exciting. There are some interesting conversations to be had, I think. So send thoughts and questions. I know a few of you on here who might have some quite vigorous questions for Alex Hines, but I don't want to sit... I think I like Alex, and I want to understand what the challenges are for rail manager. I think Alex is absolutely, along with David Horn and others who were on the BR graduate program, actually, Alex Hines is one of the points of light in terms of railway management. But I'm interested to know what power someone like Alex has to get between the politics and the mechanics of the railway. So I think this is an interesting opportunity. I know Alex has said a couple of things that are disappointing on strikes. I actually don't. Yeah, I don't think he actually But anyway, we again politics. I'm interested to get in between what power does a rail manager have to affect change, I just need to get in there and see what they can do to make a difference. Is their role just to be responsible for everything, or are there things they can materially change? Let's pick into that. Let's ask Alex why he's... So basically, to all intents and purposes, Alex, what is your job and why, and do you have any power? That's essentially what we're going to do. I would love to get David Horn on. Actually, David and I are kind of also like lightly chummy on here and in person. So it would be fun to get David on as well and have a chat. Yes, anyway, it's Alex on next week. That's going to be exciting, unless something happens with the PA and it screws up, and then I'll turn it into a pre-record and put it on later. But anyway, that's next week. Everyone, that was fun. I'm 20 minutes late. I need to now escape from this and go and tend to my wife and child and try and help out with bedtime. If I can, if she's still up. She might not be up. If that's the case, then I'm going to go and do some chores like the dishes and pack things up and unpack from the holiday and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, in the meantime, everyone, it's been an absolute pleasure. Another news episode. Hopefully, there won't... I always want to not do a news episode because I want to do a little bit of news in all the other episodes and never have news episodes because they're always right stress, but I never was working like that. Anyway, right, you've had an extra 14 minutes of me because I was late at the start of the episode, so you've got some extra bonus. Anyway, right, I'm also pulling together... Oh, no, that's going to be for the Discord Patreon supporters. I'll go into the Discord and tell you about it. Anyway, in fact, you already know about that. Right, I'm waving. I'm faffing on. Love to you all. Always a pleasure. Take care. Cheerio!